Very good evening, friends. Very good evening. Welcome to another day. And we will continue talking about Python, of course. So yesterday we did class and objects, isn't it? And we implemented some examples. We did checking a prime, generating prime using class and objects, right? We learned how to create modules. We learned how to add files to modules, isn't it? So great. We have, kind of finished class and objects. Okay. Now we'll move to different topic. Okay. So today we'll talk about database. Okay. Today we'll talk about database. What database is all about, isn't it? So why do we use database? Okay. Database is used to store data, right? So when I say store data, even text file you can store data, isn't it? In text file you can store, in Word document you can store. Okay. Then how is database different compared to all these? Okay. How is database different? So database, of course, is used to store data, but at the same time, it also helps us to access data faster. Okay, so not only helps us to save data, but also helps us to access data faster. Okay, so give me 1 second. I'll try to pull my slides. So I'm going to okay, so I'm sharing a database slide. Okay, I hope you're able to see it. Okay, so as I said, database, there are special software. There are also software, right? Okay. So they are also software, okay, and they are designed to store data. At the same time, the way it is developed is that even the accessing of the data is easy. Writing to the database and reading from database, both are easy. So yes, you can store in text file, Word document, in Excel, but writing and reading becomes difficult, isn't it? Okay, if you have to make some changes, it becomes difficult. So the developers of database, they thought of a different systems, okay, where we can store our data in a way it is easy to access. There are different types of database. The first one that was proposed was called hierarchical database management system. DBMS stands for database management systems. Okay, so hierarchical, relational, then object relational, and today these days we talk about NoSQL databases, right? But still, the relational database, which was developed in 70s, is still the most popular and most used. I would say 70 to 80% database still are relational in nature. Okay, in relational database, we store the data in terms of table and table format in rows and columns. Okay, so in column we have similar data, like if you talk about phone number, the entire column will have phone numbers only. It may have phone numbers, it may not have. But if it has a value, it has to be phone number. You cannot put email ID there, isn't it? Then along the rows, you have related data. Related data, okay. So if you say row 1, and if you have name, email ID, phone number, That means all the email ID and phone number belongs to the same person. Okay, so that's how we are storing data, right? Many companies, okay, Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, Sybase, okay, MySQL, these are companies that have started RDBMS system. Okay, and as I said, this is the most used database system. Okay, so what do we do here? Okay, now if you talk about database, there are three main types of roles or three main type of people who work with database. Okay, the first type is called database administrators. Okay, DBAs. The DBAs, their job is to make sure the database is up and running always, right? So installation, security, backups, okay, fault tolerance, like if something goes wrong, how should it come up on its own? All these concepts, all these things are handled by database administrators. Okay, so that's about the database administrators, and we are not going to talk about it. We are not going to get into the administration part. Okay, we will not talk about it in our course. Second type of role is people who create the database objects. Okay, so when database is installed, they create tables, columns. Okay, they create indexes, you know, um, views. Okay, so they create this database structure. Okay, so again, we will talk a little bit about it. Okay, but more so, our as a Python developer, our focus will be on accessing the data from the database. Okay, and and saving the data into database. So we call it as CRUD, CRUD. Okay, C stands for create. So you're creating the data. Okay, new data you're creating. R stands for read. So database already has the data and you want to read it. Okay, so you want to read the data which is already put in the database. So that's called read. Okay, so you have C for create, R for read, U for update. Okay, so there's already a database data in the database, and you want to update something. So your phone number got changed. You want to change the phone number in the database. That's an example of update. Okay, then you will have a D. CRUD. Third one is delete. Okay, so already data is there and you want to delete it. No longer required. Let's say there's an employee who has left the company. You want to delete that record. Okay, so these are the four main operations. And for us, for database developer perspective, we need to master these four steps. Okay. Okay. So, but let's understand few concepts. Okay, before we get into the CRUD. Authentication. What is authentication? Okay. See, database is installed. It's it's live, and anybody can log in and get the data, isn't it? But when you say anybody, you don't really want anybody, right? You want people who are authenticated, who are authorized users only to access it. So you'll have username, password. Only those who has access, okay, will be able to access. Now, again, in authentication, you have different modes of authentication. Okay, you can restrict what information is exposed or what information is read. Okay, who can read what information. You can even give permission up to table level. Okay, so maybe if you have a administrator, they'll have maximum access, right? So you can create someone as administration, they'll have maximum access. Somebody might be able to read only one table, somebody might be able to read 10 tables. So you can define different levels, different types of authentication. Okay, and again, this is Java of database administrator, so we are not going to talk about it, but just to know that this is what can happen. Schema is a group of database objects, okay, such as tables and indexes. So, schema is a logical structure, a logical group of database objects. Okay, so the actual information, actual work that we'll talk about is done in the database object. Okay, if you want to save some data, you will create a table and then you will save the data in the table. Okay, but you can create a group of related tables and indexes so that, okay, so that it is easy to manage. You can even have authentication or access privileges at schema level. Okay, okay. So data types, just like we have data types in Python, we too have data types in in database programming. Okay, so see here, as part of database, okay, for today and tomorrow, we are going to learn about SQL programming. It's called SQL. Okay, SQL is a language, okay, using which we can access or work with database. Okay, the thing is, you have data in the it's stored safely in the database, but how do you get it? You have to have some kind of language, right? Some kind of commands, okay, to read the data. So SQL, whether, so we discussed about different databases, right? Whether you talk about Oracle or Microsoft or IBM, they all have their own databases, right? MySQL is popular. So they are all kind, they have their own database. Now SQL, because all of these are RDBMS systems, so relational database management systems. So we have a programming language called SQL, which everybody, all the databases will understand. All the databases, they have been, okay, they, they are designed such a way that they can, they can accept SQL commands. So if you learn SQL, you can work with any RDBMS, right? So you don't have SQL for Oracle or Microsoft. Okay, it's a common programming language. Okay, common database programming language where you can fetch the information from the database. You can save the information to database. You can edit, okay, or even delete the data from the database. Okay. So when you are writing the program, okay, or rather when you are creating a table, then we have to define columns, isn't it? And along with the columns, we have to define the data type. Okay, I'm not going to get into details. I'll share this in the location. You can go through this slide. Okay, we'll just focus on what is relevant for us, right? But in your free time, you can actually read the entire PPT. I'll upload at the same location where I'm putting all the programs and codes. Okay, you can have a look. So you have numeric, okay, and just like we have numeric in Python, right? So your complex, your float, integer, all these three are part of your numeric data type. Here we have number, integer, small int, decimal. These are the different data types which falls under numeric in SQL programming. Okay, and this is what we will use when we create columns for our table. Okay, then you have character type. Character, of course, you know that you want to store text, then you will use character data type. Okay, so here you have char and varchar. Okay, when you want to use fixed number of characters, okay, so for example, gender, you want to use one letter, right? MF. So okay, so it is important, you can say character one. So character will fixed, or will have fixed number of spaces. Okay, so let's say if you say character 5 and you give only 4 character, right, one space will be taken as blank. Okay, so that's the advantage. Okay, but let's say if you want to store somebody's name, right, city, right, now name, city can be 5 letters, can be 15 letters, isn't it? It will be a variable length. So that's why we use varchar. Varchar stands for variable characters. Okay, so you will have variable length here. Okay, so that's the beauty of varchar. So in character you have char and varchar. Then date, of course, if you want to handle date, you will have date, uh, data type. Okay, So those are the important data types that we will use when we create a table. Then when you talk about creating table structure, right? Now we need to create a table where we need to store the values, right? So when you create a table, okay, we need to define few things. You need to define the column names. Okay, so if I say table student, right? So table student will have columns like roll number, isn't it? A name, email ID, phone number. Okay, these are the, let's say you want to store your student information in the database. So this is, you can have multiple tables. Okay, that's what I just gave you. Name, email ID, phone number is an example of one table. You can have multiple. You can have one more table where you are storing data with the marks obtained in the exam, right? So you can have different tables, okay, and different types of information that you want, different tables. Okay, so as I said, table will have column names, okay, and then you will have your data type. Okay, what data type the tables column should belong should have, which type of values should be stored in that column. And then we have constraints. Okay, so we put constraint in the columns, for what kind of values this can store. Okay, so you have constraints like not null constraint. Not null means the column, okay, cannot be left blank. Okay, cannot be left blank. Okay, it should have some information. If you try to leave it blank, it will throw error. Okay, so you can't leave it blank. And then you have unique constraint. Okay, unique means that the value when you're entering that column should have a unique values, or it should not have. Okay, it is okay if you enter 50 null values, but if you're entering, it should be unique. You cannot say, let's say roll number. Okay, now if you're entering roll number of student, it has to be unique. Or let's say student has not been assigned roll number yet. Okay, student has not been assigned a roll number. In that case, you can leave it blank. Okay, you can leave it blank, but you cannot enter duplicate value. So unique will have unique set of values, or blank. Blank is accepted. You can have multiple blanks. Okay, so either blank, or if you have any value, it should be unique. That means something which is not already there in that same column of the table. Okay, which is not okay. So yeah, now you should be able to see the database. Okay, so these are called constraints. Let me see when you can see my screen moving. I've shared my screen. Thanks for telling me. Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, so I'll quickly go through the slides which I've already moved. So this is where I said different types of database, hierarchical, relational, etc. Then we came to, okay, about RDBMS. Okay, then we spoke about RDBMS, relational database management system. Okay, then okay, what we are supposed to do, we will in this exercise for next 2 days, we will create a database structure and we will add tables which will store our values. Okay, then we discussed about authentication, where you can give permissions to the users to access a certain code, or certain table, or all the tables of the database. Okay, Then schema, we said that it's a group of tables and other database objects. Okay. So then we spoke about data types, right? Just like, we have data types in Python, we have data types in SQL also. Okay, because this will tell us what kind of values can be stored in the database. Then we spoke about the database values, right? The numeric or character, right? We discussed about numeric or character or even date. We'll take examples and we'll see, okay, when we are working. Okay. Then we spoke about attribute, okay, like to add columns. Then we spoke about a table, the row will have related information. Okay, then so see, generally we put table and attribute name capitalized, but SQL is a case insensitive, not sensitive. Python is case sensitive. Their small and capital have a different value, but SQL is case insensitive. Here, whether you give in small case or uppercase doesn't really matter. Okay, but as per notion or as per what the practice is, that we should put table names and attribute names in capital. Okay, so we said that to constraint not null. Not null means the column should not have empty value. Okay, should not have empty value. Then we spoke about unique, which says that it can have blank, but if it has any value, it should be unique. Unique means not, the values which are already there in that same column, okay, should not get repeated. Okay, and we have a concept called as primary key. Okay, so primary key means, okay, that particular column on which you are creating as primary key, okay, that will implement both unique and not null. Okay, unique and not null. Unique and not null, if you have it, we can create as a primary key. But what is a primary key? Primary key is it's a column. Okay, primary key is a column which will help us to uniquely identify a record. Now let's say you have 1,000 students record in the database. Okay, you have 1,000 records of student in the database. Okay, and one student, let's say phone number got changed. Now from around 1,000, how will I search, okay, which student record got changed? Okay, now if I try to search a name, you can have multiple students with same name. If you try to search with email ID, probably yes, but not all may have email ID, right? So in that case, we want a column which is unique as well as not null, right? Name, it will be not null, but it cannot be unique, right? People might have same name, possible. Then you talk about email ID. Email ID will be unique, but it can be empty also. Some record may not have email ID. So so that's why we cannot trust email ID. So we trust primary keys. Okay, so in this case we can create roll number as a primary key. So when I create roll number as a primary key, okay, then that values in that column will be not null, okay, like roll number, and unique also. So that's the primary key. Okay, you have other constraints like default constraint. Default constraint means values that will be default stored. Okay, so let's say if 80% of your employees work out of Bangalore, let's say. Okay, so if the employee that you are hired or the data that you are entering has a location Bangalore, you just leave it blank. You'll say default Bangalore. So if you leave the location blank, Bangalore will be added automatically to the database. Okay, that's the beauty of default constraint. Then you have check constraint. Check means you are checking, okay, if a certain value is present or not, or if you can say that, like for example, let's say salary. If a salary component, the value cannot be less than 0, isn't it? So you can say that check value is more than 0. Okay, so if you try to give 0 or minus, it will throw error saying that invalid number you're trying to add to salary. So these are some of the constraints. We are, okay, we will be doing this as per our, in our course. Okay, I'll talk about adding table rows. Okay, saving table changes, then listing table rows, updating table rows, restoring table contents, deleting table rows, inserting table rows with a select subquery. Okay, let's try to do this. And we will do this, we'll do all of these using Python. Okay, so this was a small introduction about databases. Now we will learn how to create database, okay, how to add information, how to read information from the database. Okay, so are we ready? I'm going back to our PyCharm. Okay, so let me share PyCharm now. Okay. Okay. So see, I told you, right, all the databases, all the relational databases, okay, are more or less same. All the relational database are same in terms of the way we access the data. They all use SQL. Okay, so there's one such database called as SQLite. SQLite 3. SQLite 3 is a database which is stored on local machine. Okay, and we are going to take this as an example to do our work. Okay, we'll take this as an example and we will learn how to work with database. The good thing is, the reason why we are doing SQLite is, for this you will not have to install any software. Okay, you will not have to install any software because Python, okay, comes with SQLite database. Okay, Python comes with SQLite database. So to install database, we will not have to do any additional task. Okay, that's why it is, okay, it is it is lightweight and easy for us to use. Okay, so let's see how we do that. Okay, I'm going to create couple of tables. Okay, in the database, and we will then insert the data. Okay, we will edit, update, and we'll also perform the reading of the database. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so as I said, right, SQLite comes with pre-installed, okay, with Python. So we don't have to install any software. Okay, but since database is a third-party thing, right? Okay, we cannot directly connect, right? We need to create some kind of bridge. We need to create some kind of bridge, okay, to know what is the database. Okay, so we need to import no, we are not doing MySQL, we are doing SQLite, right? We have to install, okay, SQLite 3. Okay, we need to install SQLite 3. Okay. So if you go to view or tools rather, no, view, tool windows and terminal. Okay, we'll say pip install SQLite 3. Okay, so that means it's already installed. Okay, you can directly, okay, okay, in this case, it means that SQLite 3 is already pre-installed. We don't have to install anything, it is pre-installed. So I can directly start using it. I'm going to say import SQLite 3. Okay, just last week we did, right? SQLite 3. How to create modules and import functions which are in the module, right? So SQLite 3 is a module, and I'm going to import SQLite 3 module. Okay, so when I say import SQLite 3 as SQ, okay, I'm saying import SQLite 3 as SQ. Now I can use SQ dot to, okay, access all the functions which are there in this module. Okay, so first thing is we need to create to a database. Now you see here, okay, if you see, this is my library.db. This is the database which I've already created earlier. Okay, so we'll create something new. I'm going to say I need to connect to the database first, right? We don't have to install SQLite 3. It is already installed with Python. So that's why we are not connecting. Now I'm going to say connection, okay, or connect equal to SQ dot, okay, connect. Okay. From SQLite, I'm calling connect, and connect will help us to connect to the database. It's like creating a road to the database, from where we will be able to send information and get information in future. Okay, so I'm saying connect. Okay, and here I'll give the database name. Okay, now this is a variable, or this is a handle, you can say, right? This is an object or handle which will give access to that database that we are creating. Okay, you can say con, you can say connect, you can say connection, whatever. Let's keep it short. So I'm saying con equal to sq.connect, and here I give a database name. Okay, so I'm going to create a new database. I'm going to say students record or something. Now see, student records is the database name. Let me put DB so that we can know that it's a DB. Okay. Now when I run it, you see here, student S is not here, right? Student record is not here. The moment I run this P1, okay, it has created students record.db. It has created the database. It has created the database for us. Okay, so SQLite 3 database is created. Okay, okay. Now we need to work with this database. Okay, so to work with this database, we need cursor. Cursor, okay, so see, with connect, we have laid a road. So we know how we need to go. I mean, what's the route that we need to follow to reach there. Okay, but now we need something which will carry. It's like a car, it's like your vehicle, which will carry your instructions, your data to the database, and if database has something to return, if they have something to return, it will return using this cursor. Okay, so cursor is where using which we will share or will send the information to the database. Okay, so I'm going to say cursor object equal to connection con dot, okay, cursor. Okay, so we have laid the road. Now we have a vehicle cursor object which will take our instructions to the computer, to the database actually. Okay, so when I run it now, you see it has created a no error, means the database is created here, student record, right? Now we need to do our work. Okay, so first of all, we'll create a table, right? We'll create a table which will have values here. Okay, so let's create, we'll create a student record, let's say. Okay, so see, for Python, it is just a string. Okay, the SQL command, okay, SQL command is SQL programming, which we will share, will send through this cursor object. So for SQL, sorry, for Python, it is just a text. For database, it is a query. But Python says, okay, give me a text, I will pass the text. It is up to the database to execute it, right? So for Python, we are going to create a table. So we are going to create a text, which is like create table, right? So let's do this. I created this. Now I'm saying create table student. Create table student. Okay, and here I'm going to give the create command. Okay, so not colon, equal to. Okay, so this is a variable, and this variable is a string. We'll create a string, okay, with SQL query. So SQL query goes like this. Okay, create table and table name. I say students. Create table name. Okay, now here we need to add first the list of columns, and if they have any, you know, constraints, that we need to add. Okay, so I'm going to say roll number. Okay, so student table will have roll number, and what is the data type of roll number? Okay, so one that we have revisited right earlier, right? Integer, right? Numeric we had, and then the text and the date, right? So we'll say roll number is of type int. Okay, and again, it doesn't matter here. This is case insensitive. So either you give small or capital, doesn't matter. If you give small or capital, doesn't matter. So I'm saying create table students, roll number int, name will say varchar 80. Okay, so roll number is first column, name is second column, will say salary. Okay, so your student will not have salary, right? So let's say we put fees. I was thinking of a real number. So instead of salary, we'll put fees and we'll give this as real. Okay. Name, fees. Okay. We'll have say admission date. Admission date is going to be, you can have it as a date or you can have it as a text. Okay, we'll have it as a date. Okay, fees, and we will add one more. Okay, I was thinking to add a number, age, let's say. Age, and age is again integer, isn't it? Fine. So we have column, roll number, first column, name, second column, fees, third, admission date, 4, age as 5th. Okay, so this is it. Now, do we have any primary key here? Yes. We will use roll number as primary key. So I'm going to say comma primary key, okay, roll number. Okay, so hopefully our our query is right. Okay, and we need to execute this query. Okay, so this is the text. I'm going to now execute this query. How do we execute? We say cursor dot execute, right? So cursor object, okay, dot execute, and in the bracket you give the variable. You give the variable that we need to execute, right? For Python it is just a string, right? But for us it's a command, right? Now you run it. Incomplete input, where line number 7. Okay, cursor object dot execute. Cursor object dot execute, right? Create. Oh, you see this? We have this opening bracket, right? Create table, table name, and opening bracket, and we did not close, right? So you have to close it. Okay. Now our create command is successful, right? Create table and table name, bracket open. Inside the bracket, you define all your columns that you want table to create automatically. All the list of columns that you want this one to create automatically, right? So now when you run it, it should be fine. Okay, no error, executed successfully. If I try to do it again, what happens? You get error. Table students already exist. Table student already exists. So this table is already there. What do we do? That means our job is done, right? That's it. Okay. If you have to make any changes, okay, if you want to make any changes, then we need to drop the table first. Drop and recreate. So if you drop it, entire data gets deleted, right? So let's say something happened and you're not happy. So you want to clean that table, remove all that data from that table. So of course we can do it. Okay, I'm going to say cursor object dot execute, and here I'm going to say drop table students. Drop table students. So see, it has dropped the table and new table is created. Okay, so great, we have dropped the table, table is created now. So the first, not first part, we have to do CRUD later, but important thing is, first thing that you should have a table, isn't it? If you do not have a table, then you can, where will you add the data? From where will you get the data? So we have to create the table, and table is now created. Table is now created. Now the table is created, we need to add some data to it. Okay, so let's add some data to this. How do I add data? You have to say insert. Okay, so this is done. We don't need, so I'm going to comment it out. So we are doing C of CRUD, which is create data, and it is done using insert. Okay, insert is a command to create data. I want to create data in this table. Okay, so I'm going to write Okay. Um, I'm going to say, okay, insert 1 equal to, you can use triple or double, whatever you feel like. Okay. I'm going to say insert, okay. Insert into what? Insert into students. So I'm going to say insert into students. Okay. So this is the command to insert data into database. Okay. Insert into table name, bracket open, and here we can give the columns where we're going to insert the data. Okay. So insert into students. First thing is roll number, right? I can say 101. Then is name. So name should be here. Text here should be in single quote, not in double. Okay. So name, I'll say okay. Tendulkar. I don't know. Okay. 101 Sachin Tendulkar. Okay. Fees. We'll put. Okay. You can put 0 or you can put decimal value also. You can put here. Okay. Then admission date. Admission date is a date. So I'm going to say 12th March 2021. It's last year the student got admitted on 12th March. This is your date. Okay. Then age. Age we say 9. Okay. So this is the okay. This is a Python. So not Python. SQL command. Okay. See, this is your SQL command to create a table. This is your SQL command to insert a value in the table. Okay. Now we need to run it, right? So how do we run it? We say okay, cursor.execute, isn't it? So we'll say cursor object dot execute. Insert 1. Okay. 101 syntax error. 101 is syntax error. Okay. Now see here. Okay. This command, okay, I have not completed it. Okay. If you want to insert values, right? So if you want to add, see that there are two ways I can insert value. One is, let's say you have 5 columns. So I insert only for 4 columns or 3 columns or 2 columns. Okay. Second option is I insert value for all the columns. Okay. Now, in this case, I'm inserting values for all the columns, right? So you have to say values here. Okay. You have to say values here. That's one. Second is, if you do not want to insert for all the columns, okay, you want to insert for few columns only. So insert into student, okay. Before values, you have to say the column for which you are inserting. So I will say roll number, and I'm going to say okay, I will take name, roll number, name, and age, let's say. Okay, I'm not going to insert values in all the columns. Okay, so I want to insert values in only 3 columns. Roll number, name, and age. I have to insert into roll number because roll number I have set primary key. So it has to be unique and not null. Apart from that, you can put it in any column, right? So I'll say roll number, name, and age. So roll number, I need to have roll number. Okay, name, I have to give some name here. And okay, fees and date of admission is not required. So I'm going to delete it. And age, let's say 8. So you see that? So here, if we, I did not mention the column names. I did not mention the column names because I want to add values to all the columns. Okay. So if you are adding values to all the columns and in the same order, okay, the order in which you created, roll number, name, fees, admin date, age, this is the order in which we created. If you want to give data in the same order, we don't have to say column names. Otherwise, you have to say column names. Okay. So here, that's what, like, we are inserting data, but here we don't need all the values. So you only mention the columns which will have values, and here you're mentioning, you can mention name before roll number anywhere, doesn't matter. But when you're giving the values should match with the value, the column names. So it does left to right matching. So here 102 will go to roll number, Kapil Dev will go to name, and 8 will go to age. Now I'm going to run it again. So see, I'm running it. It's executing perfectly. It is inserting, isn't it? But we said roll number is a primary key. When we say roll number is a primary key, it should give error, isn't it? Why is it not giving us error? Right? First time you run it, 101 Sachin, 102 Kapil, fine. But second time when you run it, 101 when it's trying to enter second time, it should give error. Name, fine. Name is not unique. So you can have 2 players, 2 students with Sachin Tendulkar name. But roll number you can't have 2, right? Why is it not throwing error? It is not throwing error because, okay, when you are running like this, the information is not saved permanently to the database. We have to use something called as connection dot commit. Commit will save the data in the database. Commit will save the data in the database. Okay. So, okay, when you're doing insert or even update, okay, you need to do it with con.commit. Now when I run it, okay, fine. Okay, so it has inserted and committed. Now again, if I try to run, you see, unique constraint failed on student.roll number. Student roll number is the primary key. So primary key means not null and unique. Not null, it is there. So not null, constraint is not violated, but unique constraint is violated, isn't it? You should have unique values here. Okay, so I'm going to say 103, and I'm going to say Virat Kohli. Okay, Virat Kohli, 350. Okay, and I'm going to say 12. Okay, and here I'm going to say 104, and I'm going to say here Rohit Sharma, let's say. Okay, now when you run it, perfectly fine. Again, when I try to run it, it will give error, unique constraint, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to comment this cursor.object execute. So we have inserted the data. We have inserted the data. Okay, we created a table, then we inserted the data. All good? Now, how do we see the data? We have inserted, but we need to see the data in the database, right? So we use something called, okay, so see, this is C of crude, isn't it? Now we are going to do This commit is required for all the edits, right? Like crude C or U or D. Okay, so you can have, we'll put it here itself. And now I'm going to say R of crude, which is read. And you read using select command. Select is the command using which we read the data from the database. Okay, so I'm going to create select one string, and I'm going to say select star from students. Okay, select means of course reading, that's what we are doing. Select star. Star means read all the columns. Okay, so we have 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, isn't it? Roll number, name, fees, date of admission, and age. We have 5 columns. All 5 columns will be fetched. Select star from student. Now see, select or read a little different than your insert. Insert is a one-way traffic. You create a variable with insert query, and you say database, here is the insert query, run it. Here is insert query, run it on the database, and database will run it. There's nothing that you are getting back. There's nothing to bring back, isn't it? But when you talk about select, you need to create everything, like, database, here is the select query, but also you need to read the data which the database is going to fetch when you read it, right? So select is not one-way traffic. Select is two-way traffic. You're sending the query, SQL query, and you're getting back the output. Insert, you won't get back anything. Insert is one way, you take the query, you run it, okay, it executes, it creates the data into table. But when you want to read it, you have to two-way traffic. One way is to send the command just like you do for any other thing, but it will return some value which you need to handle it, isn't it? So when you say select, and now when I say, cursor dot execute, okay, and I say select one, okay, so it is going to execute it. But how do I save the data? How do I get the data here? Okay, so we have something called as fetch all. Cursor object fetch all. Fetch one, fetch none, fetch all. Fetch one will take one record, one row from the database. When I say fetch all, it will bring all the rows from the database. Okay, so next step, cursor.object.execute is done. Then you say cursor, okay, object dot fetch all, okay, and this should return us the values, isn't it? So values equal to cursor object dot fetch all the information in the database is in values. You can simply say print values. Okay, it's going to read all the data and print. You see, the values will store the data in a list, and this list has tuples. Each row is saved as a tuple. You see, this is the first row that we inserted, 101 Sachin. Everything is saved as a tuple. Okay, this is your second row, second tuple. Row tuple 4. Okay, so if you have to read each value, you can go back to the discussion that we did in list and tuple. Okay, you can do the iteration. So I can say for I in values. So I will take the each values, right? First row, it will take the first tuple. Second row, it will take the second tuple. Third row, it will take the third tuple, right? You can say print I. Now, when I say print I, the entire thing is printed as a tuple here. But I want to print only names. Okay, so I can say I of, if I say 0, it will print only roll number. If I say 1, it will print only the names. Okay, so this is how you can read the data. So today we'll just do this simple select. Tomorrow we will, we'll do few conditions also, right? How to do conditions and check and do like that. But today we'll just see how to read the data from the database. So we have just read the data from the database using select. Okay, select requires us to use fetch all, because fetch all is going to give all the data from cursor object into values. And since values is list, we know how to handle list, and we will be able to read each column, each values, and do whatever you want to do. It depends upon your logic, what you want to do. You can, build this, and you can read the values from the database. Okay, so we have read the values from the database here. This is also fine. Then we still have to do UD, isn't it? U for update. Okay, and D for delete. Okay, so see, create uses insert command. Okay, create and insert, they are different, isn't it? Operation is create, but it uses insert. Operation is read, but it uses select. But your update and delete will use update and delete keywords only. Okay, it's not going to use any other different alias. Okay, it will use delete and update. Okay, D for delete, U for update. So delete is used to entirely delete a record, isn't it? So I want to delete, let's say, roll number 102. So I'm going to say, okay, delete string equal to, okay, so delete, right? Okay, delete. How do we delete? Using delete command. How to write delete command? Okay, so simply say delete. Delete from where? Which table? So delete from students. So delete from students. If I run, okay, this is equal to, not hyphen. If I execute this, okay, cursor object dot execute, okay, it's going to okay. So if I run, see, I have not run it. If I run it, all the data will be deleted, right? So this is where the primary key helps us. I'm saying delete from students where roll number equal to 102, where roll number is 102. If I run it, okay, 102 should be gone. Kapil Dev should not be printed in the next. But what did I say? Your delete update. Okay. Oops, I'm putting in, this is delete I'm doing, right? So I'm writing update, but I'm doing delete. Okay. So this is where we'll do. So when I say delete, okay, it is deleting, but information is not saved, right? So, you can, one commit is enough. You don't have to do twice the commit. So instead, I'll copy from here and put it at the end. Okay. Now when you run it, it's gone. Now if I try to do it, okay, you see 102 is not there, isn't it? So 102 is not there. 101, 103, 102 is deleted. Okay. So 102 record is deleted for us. Okay. You can again comment it. Now I want to change the okay, so you have admission date, right? And what is the last one here? Rohit Sharma, none, right? Admission. So this is admission date. And what is before admission date? fees, right? Okay, so let's update the fees. Okay, so for update, you will have to update query. So I'm going to say update query, okay, equal to update. Okay, update means I want to update a certain row in the database. Okay, so update, now what? Okay, update table name, update student. Okay, fine, but which value you want to update? So we'll use set, update set, okay, set fees, isn't it? Fees equal to 808.08, 808.8, right? 8.08, right? So now we have to execute it, isn't it? We'll execute and we will comment it. Okay, this is update query. Run update query. Okay, this is updated. Now you will run again. So you see this? Rohit Sharma has updated 808.08. This is how you update the existing table. Okay, so I think it's good, time to stop. So today we have seen database. We discussed what database is. Database is software which will help us to access, read, insert, delete data easily. Okay, we spoke about SQLite 3, same concept. Okay, works with all the databases. Okay, SQLite 3 because it does not require any extra installation. You can install automatic. I mean, it is already installed with Python. So you just have to create a database. So we learn how to create a database first. Okay, then how to connect to the database. So create and create is in one line. Then to run any query, you have to create an object. Okay, in object we have to say execute. So object has an execute function using which we can execute the content. So you write the query and say execute, write the query and say execute, cursor.execute the query. So two things here. First, you have to understand what query is, how to build this query. I'm going to do tomorrow also we'll do. Okay, tomorrow also we'll see how we can do it. Okay, you have to practice. Okay, you guys have to practice to see how we can use. Okay, so this is about creating, updating, deleting, insert, and then okay, you have to commit it also. If you don't commit it, information is not permanently saved in the database, right? So you can have just one commit enough. Before closing the program, you can say one commit. Then we have insert, we are inserting in the table. Okay, then we discussed about update, where we are updating some set of values based on given condition. Condition is that, oh no, what did I do? See here, see what happened? One small mistake and all of this, you see. Sachin Tendulkar also 808. Virat Kohli also 808. Rohit Sharma also 808. Okay, we did not. We say update set fees equal to 808. So it changed the fees of all the students. Okay, you have to give a condition here. Okay, update. Okay, set where roll number equal to, now if I do it for Rohit Sharma, I have to say 104. Okay, let's make it 15. Okay, so you have to say where. Now where, when we say, okay, it will only execute that particular column where the row is 104, that the roll number is 104. You see, now everything else is 808. Only Rohit Sharma has value 1508. Okay, any question before we stop? Okay. So to add new data to the database, you have to say insert. To read, you have to say select. Okay. To update the existing value, you say update. And to delete a row, you have to say delete. Okay. So tomorrow we'll continue the same discussion. Okay. We'll try to, continue with the same discussion. We'll look at some of the more queries using select. Okay. We can build multiple where clause. Okay. So with that, we end our today's session. I hope you enjoyed. Any question before we wrap up, please put it in the chat. I'll answer. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for today's time. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye, everyone.